Okay, so nice and easy as always as you start up. A couple of slow, deep breaths. Weight a little bit forwards, hips dropping back, and that feeling of just settling a little bit. And a change in your posture that hopefully redirects your attention for a few moments into your feet, this feeling of rooting down. And then just feeling what's happening in the center of your body, hips and waist. Just let your attention slowly pan up through your body, so from your waist to the solar plexus, to your shoulders. Just a reminder that there are two ways you can let your head engage with the movement here. I come a bit closer, you'll see what I'm doing at the moment. My head is moving, so I'm looking straight ahead. Problem with that is, if you've got your eyes open, it gets a bit kind of blurry. The other way of doing it is to keep your head still, so that your body turns underneath your head. And the problem with that is that you can potentially put sort of tighten, put pressure on the side of the neck there, which is not a great idea. You could close your eyes if that helps you. But you could try both ways. But in the end, I think what I tend to do is a mixture. Sometimes I'll just let my head move and I'll be taking a look around. Sometimes I'll keep it still. Sometimes I might just look in a different direction. Remember, your eyes naturally scan around. We're not trying to stop that happening. It's quite tricky. You want to have both a kind of broad vista, but also maybe an awareness of some of the detail around you. And certainly don't force your eyes to focus on one thing. If you do that, you'll start to feel a bit of eye strain. You'll also start to get a sort of shadow around the edge of your eye, because part of how the eye works is to scan, flicker around, and let the brain build up a sort of composite picture. And then just raising your arms. So our head naturally looks forward, but of course we have a certain amount of flexibility. Our eyes, as I said, will scan the environment and build up this picture of what's going on. But generally speaking, we have what is sometimes referred to as the central vision. So if I look at the screen there, for instance, I can see people on the computer screen in the middle of my vision. I'm also aware that there are objects and things around on the edge of my vision, the corner of my eye, what's referred to as the peripheral vision. when we're looking straight ahead, that's very straightforward. When we start to turn, that can be a bit trickier. It's really important when you turn that you don't lead with your head, because that can happen very, very easily. On the other hand, you don't necessarily want your head to be held rigid. You don't want to think, well, I can't move my head, as though it's kind of locked in place. So again, there's a kind of balance here. You don't want to be looking too far out, but on the other hand, you don't want to feel that you're kind of locked in to something. When we come to movements like Wind Blows the Willows and Repulse the Monkey, here, as I look here, I'm looking mostly ahead. But there's also, I can glance behind and just pick up this rear hand in the corner of my eye, in my peripheral vision. So there's a sense that when you move, you are actually able to look around. It's part of how we function in our environments. This scanning around to see what's there. We do it all the time, quite naturally, and we don't want it to go too far. We don't want to get distracted, but it's another natural function that we don't want to sort of suppress in any way. Now, just swaying in the river. Nice and easy and gently. Just going to measure for how far you can move. Feel the movement in the bones of your legs, and your back, and your arms, and of course your pelvis. And from there, like a kind of wave out through the organs and muscles, to your skin. I've sometimes pointed out to you what's happening in the ribs and your chest. You still want to be aware of that, but not as an isolated thing. It's initiated by the movement of your weight, the flow of the movement, the flow of the energy through the legs, the back. Breath nice and calm. And then bringing your hands in. And just remind you, we did this last week. Same movement in your body, just with this sense of carrying a tray of drinks that you really don't want to spill. So as you go forward, just a gentle extension. I come a bit closer, you'll see it's here, just as I go forward, but I tilt forward, but there's also a little bit of a movement there. The angle of my elbow becomes more shallow, and then I go back, comes to there. So again, it's like something that starts in your feet, pushing through your arms, into your fingers, almost like water flowing and then withdrawing. So the movement, the quality of the movement, the sense of the energy in your arms becomes very apparent, in your arms and your hands. Quality that we want to maintain in all of the exercises, and which really is very dependent on this connection through your body. Quite a functional idea. You're doing something very, very definite here. It's not that your hands are passive, it's more about how the movement builds. So now, let your weight settle, just bring your hands in, sink down, trying to maintain the connections. So the quality of the movement in your arms and your hands can be an indication of how things are going in the rest of your body. You find that you're sort of starting to flap around a bit in your arms, you probably lost that link down into your feet. And so that's what you want to try and bring yourself back to. If everything is left to your arms and your hands, you won't have the same experience of movement and energy within your body. This time change into the wild goose. Body expanding and contracting. See how it feels just to take a breath in every now and then as you expand. Notice that fresher quality in your in-breath, sharper, clearer. So there's a refreshing element, rejuvenating element to all of this. And then parting the clouds. And now, dragon plucks the stars from the sky. One more time. Pushing in 4 directions, just letting your hips drop back so we don't go up and down with this one. But it's important to get that feeling of dropping through your hips so you're not straining in your back, your hips, your waist, to hold the weight of your body up. And if you, so that now the turn is again nice and smooth, nice and loose. Feeling as much as possible through your body that downward pull of gravity working on your hips, your pelvis, ribs, shoulders, your arms, your head. Trying to feel it as a flow rather than something that is a straining, that it's something moving down through your body. And then see if you can get a sense for the counter movement, this resilience, this springy quality through your body And your bones and the muscles support them. Giving you an upward movement. So there's still a very dynamic element to the posture, apart from the obvious that you're able to see. One more round of this. And changing after this one. Circling palms. Still your hips dropping back. Just remind yourself, because that allows for that two-way movement, as I described it, through your body. And that's the movement, the energy that's going to link up through your body, so that without that quality of movement in your arms that I described earlier, that we experienced earlier, will start to get lost. This time, if it's comfortable, add in the turn. So the most common readjustment we will be asked to make in Tai Chi, and this is true for all of us, is to simply remember to drop our hips back, to go back to that rooted quality. Now switch sides. It can work the other way. Realizing that you've lost that quality of movement can actually remind you that that's what you're looking for, and that will lead your body back into the posture. None of these things are two-way, are one-way processes. So add the turn. And then rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. Dropping down a little bit deeper. One more time. Letting your hips drop back. And this time, as you start to push up, go straight into hitting the ball in front of the shoulder. And imagine that you're offering a cup of coffee to a friend, or a cup of tea, glass of something nice, a drink, something. You don't want to spill it. Or maybe taking it off them, if you prefer that image. Whichever way you look at it, you're looking to move very carefully, but still to very much move through your upper body. Remember also that there would be a certain amount of weight that you're trying to maneuver. You know, a cup of coffee, a cup of tea can feel quite heavy, especially as your hand gets further from your body. So you need to feel that connection down through your arm, from your shoulder to your elbow to your wrist. The muscles of your arms supporting the bones, giving you a structure that actually has that quality of internal strength, particularly as it extends out from your body. The risk there of losing it is very strong. One more on each side. And we're going to change to cow gaze at the moon, carefully with your back. So the moon is over your shoulder. So you get to about here, and you're just, again, starting to look through the corner of your eye towards the moon. How far you can turn is, it's down to your back and your body. Don't strain. But what it means is, I'll show you from the side here, as I come around, my body's facing that way. I might just be able to get that spiraling turn up through my neck in my head. Now, one more time. When you come back this time, just try and straighten your feet up a little bit. Bring your hands in and stretch in between heaven and earth. Expanding, contracting. Make sure that your hands don't go behind your body. You see where my bottom hand goes here. You see it there. The top hand, even further forwards, really. I don't want this to happen. End up pulling backwards. It's surprisingly common for us to do that. As always, with this one, go nice and easy with the different stages. You can start to just move your weight dropping down in the middle. The more comfortable, just keeping your weight in 50-50, that's fine. Raising the foot and settling into supporting leg, bring the other foot in, push up, drop down, step out, move across, settle in and push up. Really, those two actions, the push up and your foot coming in, are very much connected. It's as though the push up helps to draw your foot in. But the way I just described it was really, the way we start, we make sure that we're settled first. We bring the foot in, we push up. So every now and then it's useful to make sure that you are doing all of that, particularly if you want to do this. You want to raise the foot. If you've kind of missed that all important moment of settling into the foot, that's when it will start to get a bit wobbly. Okay, and then bring your feet back. When we were doing cow gazes at the moon, I said about this spiraling movement through the body. I've mentioned this before in these classes. So again, if I come a bit closer, we can think of sort of 3 regions of the body. If that suits you, you can think of it as the lower, middle, and upper down chin, or in all sorts of ways, really. So basically, if I think of that, the first part of the turn is here, and you can see my whole body has moved. From here, I think of this area of the body, and I turn there. I'm exaggerating this a little bit, and so everything from there upwards moves, and then I can turn there, so and my head follows. So you can see I've actually turned quite a long way. That's as far as I would want to turn, and I'm comfortably looking in that direction. But if I just turn from here, if I just try and twist that top part of my body around, now it's really uncomfortable and it's even a bit wobbly. So when we do something like cow gazes at the moon, I would come across and I would, raising the heel helps. I would turn in the middle, in the center, the waist, hip, and then in the solar plexus, and then there. And again, that's reasonably comfortable for me. And I can look over there. But if I just move the weight across, even if I raise the heel and I do this, I'm already starting to fall. So this, if you think of a kind of getting some pieces of string and winding them around, or something like that, it's kind of spiraling. So it expands like a tornado, expands upwards in that way. Each turn, if you like, think of it like that, each level turning a little bit more than the one below, but never so much that the muscles, the connective tissue between one level, shall we call it, and another are put under strain. It's this progressive build-up. And that, of course, relates to what I was saying earlier about what happens in the head and everything. All movement builds in this way in Tai Chi. So we have various things to think about. We can think of that spiraling movement I've just described. We also can think about this idea of carrying the tray of drinks, because it's not just one part of the body. We're not doing that or whatever. It's this build-up, expansion through the body. Your Chinese writings use the phrase that an ounce will move 1,000 pounds. So a small amount of effort in the right place and a series of efforts accumulating will achieve a great deal. Now, going into bear play, starting with this again, slight sort of upward and over movement. As always, I'm exaggerating this a little bit just to make it clear there's this almost like a curve that you're following. Really emphasizing the dropping down. With that, the rolling of your hips. and your shoulders following that movement. And you can feel this sort of suppleness in the back and your spine, up into your rib cage. So we often think of our spine, even our ribs and chest, as being solid. But in fact, the spine is quite a flexible part of the body. Chest can be quite kind of soft. And then bring your arms into the movement, bear play. So this helps with that connection from your feet, because we start to really appreciate the energy of our back and how that transmits to our arms, without which, of course, whatever happens in our feet, this isn't going to go anywhere. It's all very well to say, rooted in the feet, released in the legs, controlled in the center, expressed in the arms, which is a phrase that I've used before. But that actually leaves out a whole chunk of the body, doesn't it, if you think about it? And this is a good exercise for just exploring what happens in that area between hips and shoulders, with this lovely image of the stronger fluidity of the bear. Try and make sure of the positioning of your hands. So you see here, shoulder, to an extent, elbow and hip and hand are all more or less in one line, even though your body's turning. Common mistake is to do this, is to turn and have your hand come all the way over. I always think of this as the drunken bear. It's been at the rocking fruit and is kind of lurching around a little bit. But what it means, if we do it properly, again, come closer there's an opening here. And a close in, an opening, and a close in. So there's this expansion and contraction in the chest that we've noticed in lots of other exercises. It's very much a feature. Let's do one more on each side, and then we'll keep that sense of the energy of the back and going into swimming dragon. So as always, careful, bring your hands in front of you, drop your hips a little bit, and then over to one side. Think of these three circles, these three regions of the body. Soften your knees. And if it's comfortable for you, feet together. If that makes the exercise a strain, then keep them hip width apart. You'll still get lots of benefit from it. But it is a strong exercise in your back, remember. So. Of course, it's with the feet together like that, a bit harder in your knees as well, so watch out for that. Now, let me go in the other direction. When you go for that lower part of the movement, try and look for a sort of balance between your knees bending, which they clearly do here, and tilting forwards. Don't just lean forwards, but don't think it's all in the knees, because you'll just have to go down too far. So there's a slight sort of tilting. Okay. And shake out. Swimming dragon. One of the stronger exercises. So there's a whole range of these exercises in the sort of Tai Chi Qigong umbrella. Some of them are really quite demanding on the body. Well, in some senses they all are, but this swimming dragon is definitely one that comes at the sort of stronger end in my opinion. So one to treat carefully. If you're doing it and you're like, oh God, my back's really stiff, just do 2 or 3. I mean, you know, you don't have to do a lot, but do it regularly. Do it every day, and you'll find that gradually you'll get to know the exercise, and your back will soften up. Never be in a hurry with these things. You know, it can be very tricky when you watch somebody doing these exercises. You can go onto YouTube and you can see people doing exercises. Always remember, they've probably been doing it all their life. So, you know, you wouldn't go out and you wouldn't sort of watch somebody running a marathon or winning a tennis tournament or something like that and think, oh, I'll go and do that. Just buy a tennis racket and go and play a game. It doesn't work like that. You have to build up. Now, 1 foot forwards. Moving your weight. And imagine doing this in water. And see if you can get a sense for that same sense of energy in your back and your spine that we had in things like the bear play. It's a hugely important exercise. We could spend hours on just on this one. But let's bring in that idea of carrying the tray of drinks. So the good thing about this is it's not a complicated movement or a complicated idea. It's one that we can all envisage. Also said last week, of course, if it suits you better, imagine the supermarket trolley pushing that's fine. Something happening in your upper body as a result of the movement of your weight, some kind of intent, some kind of purpose there, but not done in a way that loses the smoothness of the movement, that sense of something happening all the way through your body. Raising your toes and your heel. Stepping in. Good. And on the other side, first of all, hands just hanging down by your sides. I don't want to detract your attention from this exercise. It's nice to do the hand. I don't mean to suggest that this is somehow less important than it was. It is a particularly important exercise if you're if you're concerned about mobility and so on and so forth, but really essential for Tai Chi as a whole. And then just bringing your hands up. So your hands are held in position in a similar way to the sort of platform of a suspension bridge. That you've got this structure of your bones going out, and then the various muscles being like the cables of the bridge. And when you see a suspension bridge, you know the cables aren't stiff and tight, and the bridge can move a little bit. The cables are curved, in fact. And I'm sure somebody with better architectural structural knowledge than me could describe that better, but you get the idea. So you don't want to sort of like be holding your hands stiff. If I hold my muscles tight, then actually they're starting to shake. I'm starting to spill the drinks. Just raise your toes and your heel. It may take you a while to develop the muscle tone, not just muscle, tendon, ligament, fascia, to develop the condition of the body to enable you to keep your arms in this position for a while without them straining. Stepping in. And then if you're comfortable with this, either going forwards or backwards, taking a couple of steps. And then going back. What I was just saying there about the arms is an example of how we use the body, or we approach our posture and the way that we use our body very differently in Tai Chi to some other forms of movement and exercise. A very common thing, very common practice, one that I do a little myself, I don't often integrate it into classes, is simply standing. This is the most common standing position there. And you're meant to stand like that for about half an hour or more. It can get a bit competitive, to be honest. Sometimes if you're with other Tai Chi people, some just say, oh yeah, I can hold it for an hour. And there's always somebody who'll turn around and say, well, I can hold it for an hour and a half. You know? But to start off with, you do this, and after sort of a few minutes, your arms are really tight and stiff, and it's horrible. But if you keep doing it in time, gradually you learn a different way of supporting the weight of your arms away from your body in that. One that engages more of the body. We start off and it's like something like it'll be the biceps holding the arms up. They get tired very quickly. So then it becomes one of the other muscles, some of the postural muscles, maybe the trapezius gets involved, and they start to ache, and they get tired very quickly, and so on and so forth. And gradually, more of your body gets involved in holding that position. So, I mean, you don't necessarily feel free to try it. But again, it's an example of where, you know, when one part of the body is in motion, the whole body is in motion, the whole body is engaged. Okay, have your right foot forward, so mirror my movements. Sink your weight back, turn your hands out, going forwards. I don't know if I mentioned it last week. I was watching on YouTube some film of birds coming into land. There was one in particular, it was this massive eagle owl coming to land on somebody's hand. And it was very obvious that as the bird came in and it needed to break, it kind of did this. It puffed its chest out and folded its wings in a little bit. And it made me think that maybe I should be calling this exercise Bird Folds Its Wings. It was interesting to see, because you could really see the big muscles of the bird's chest working with the wings. So again, we've got that connection from our legs into our arms, through our back, our spine, through the front of the body and the rib cage. This time, sink back, stay in your back foot, just fold your arms in, and now go into pigeon spreads its wings. Same thing, it's just the other way around. You're opening the chest as you go forwards this time, and it's slightly different in the arms, slightly different image, slightly different intent. One more time. Fisherman cast the net. And just your arms swing back a little bit, and chest open. So once we become aware of these connections working, we realize that they can work in lots of different ways, different parts of the body linking in different ways, different order, different patterns of movement through the body. And the exercise is just become aware of just exploring this inner landscape of the body. Sometimes it seems to me that whichever way I feel, oh yeah, that's how it works, something happens and I notice something where the same principle, but it works in a slightly different way. So nothing is set in stone. Now, pushing away, pushing the back. One more time. And then repulse the monkey. So you go forwards, you leave your right hand above the right foot, above the front foot, sink back and turn. And this is where you might just want to, for a moment, glance at this rear hand and then turn your attention back to the front hand. Same thing here. So as I turn, I can just look, I can see this hand rising, but now I'm looking back to the front. So it just allows for a little bit of freedom of movement in your head. You're not holding your head rigid, but neither are you twisting your neck up. Good. So lift foot forwards. And just rotating gently out, soften your elbows, move the weight forwards. And then change into the pigeon, spread its wings, weight in your back. One more round. Fisherman castaman. Pushing away. And repulse the monkey. And remaining in place, just gently rotating. So that working in those muscles and those connections between your arm and the chest. So in that rotation, that area where your arm meets your shoulder. And it's very interesting. It has quite an effect on the chest and lungs.
Hi, this is Mike from Cambridge.
Nicely and gently. One more time.
I can't take it just yet, but if you'd like to leave a message,
and then
thanks again.
just bring your feet parallel. Now rub your hands together.
Thank you for calling.
Tapping over your face. Your head and neck. Shoulder. The glasses back on. And your arm. The other side. Your back. And around your hips. Light on your belly. And your upper part of your chest. Standing. Again, just aware of transmission of your weight from your head down through the middle of your body into your hips, shoulders dropping down, the rib cage dropping down, hips dropping down so that flow the weight down through your body, down through your thighs, your knees, calves, and into your feet. Sinking down a little bit more. Embrace tiger, return to mountain. One more time. And rest. Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody.